A decorated army colonel, a fallen soldier's remains, and a flight he was denied. What happened next shook the entire country. The terminal buzzed with its usual storm of activity, families juggling luggage, executives glued to screens, children darting between the rows of seats. Through the noise and motion, Colonel David Carter stepped inside, the echo of his polished shoes cutting a path across the floor. Airports were nothing new to him, but this day bore a weight unlike the rest. It wasn't just the medals across his chest pressing down, it was the responsibility of the flag-draped casket resting outside, holding Private First Class Jason Reynolds, barely 22, whose life had ended far too early. Straightening his cap, Carter drew in a steady breath. This wasn't about ceremony or recognition. This was about a vow etched into every soldier's heart that no comrade is left behind. At the counter, he placed down his identification and travel orders with precision. The clerk skimmed them, fingers tapping across her keyboard, her expression tightening. She looked up, her hesitation lingering a beat too long. "Sir, may I see that one more time?" she asked, voice taut. He passed the papers back, watching the unease flicker in her eyes as she leaned toward a colleague. Their hushed words carried the weight of something he had encountered countless times. Resistance cloaked in procedure. When she turned again, her smile was thin, rehearsed. "I'm sorry, Colonel, there's a problem with this reservation. Boarding isn't permitted." Carter's jaw tightened, his reply calm but resolute. "These are official military orders. I'm assigned to escort the remains of a fallen service member. Everything here is legitimate." She avoided his gaze. "I understand, but there's a protocol in effect. We can't override it." He repeated her word, steady as stone. "Protocol? What protocol?" Around him, passengers shuffled, whispers spreading as they realized a decorated officer was being turned away. Carter planted his feet, refusing to yield. "This isn't leisure, this is duty. Explain exactly what's preventing this flight." Her glance darted toward the cluster of employees in the back. After a tense pause, a man with silver at his temples and a name tag pinned neatly to his blazer emerged. Folding his arms, he studied Carter with weary eyes, carrying the authority of someone used to ending conversations. "I apologize for the inconvenience," the supervisor began, his tone carefully polished, the kind of voice used by someone hoping polite formality would end the discussion. "But there are regulations in place, and right now we can't override them." There it was again, that word, regulations. Carter drew a long breath through his nose, steadying himself. He had heard the same evasive language before, though in very different circumstances. "I've traveled on assignments like this before," he said evenly, years of restraint hiding the edge of his frustration. "I know the process. There is no regulation that prevents me from escorting a soldier home, so why am I really being blocked?" The supervisor shifted, clearing his throat. "It's an additional security measure, Colonel. Nothing personal, nothing personal." Carter's jaw tensed, but he didn't let anger seize him. He had seen too many officials use vague language to deflect responsibility, baiting men into outbursts that could be held against them. He wouldn't play into it. By now the crowd behind him had grown silent, the weight of the standoff drawing every eye. A woman in a red jacket leaned toward her husband, whispering. A student with earbuds dangling stared at the counter, brows furrowed. Then a firm voice rose from a few places back. "Are you questioning his military clearance?" Carter turned just slightly. An older man stood there, perhaps in his mid-60s, his face marked by years and a USMC cap pulled low across his forehead. A Marine veteran, without question. The supervisor looked rattled. "No, sir, this isn't about clearance. It's simply policy." The veteran let out a sharp exhale, folding his arms across his chest. "I've passed through checkpoints more times than I can count, and not once have I seen a policy stop an officer from bringing one of our own home." "Which is it?" A low ripple of voices spread through the terminal. Several passengers lifted their phones, recording. The shift in atmosphere was sudden and heavy. The clerk who had first denied Carter glanced nervously at her superior, her confidence unraveling. The supervisor rubbed his temple, clearly aware of the spotlight growing hotter. "Let me review something," he muttered, retreating toward the back offices. The agent behind the counter buried herself in her keyboard, desperatito appear busy. Carter stood unmoved, shoulders squared, eyes ahead, every inch the soldier refusing to yield. Around him, the whispers had turned into comments. A woman in a denim jacket shook her head in disgust. "This isn't right. He's wearing the uniform," she said to her husband. A younger man in a hoodie typed furiously on his phone, thumbs flying. The story wasn't just confined to that terminal anymore, it was already moving outward. Carter noted every reaction, every camera, every growing piece of pressure. The longer the supervisor stayed away, the clearer it became. He was either scrambling for justification or hoping the attention would fade. Neither was going to happen. Then another voice broke the silence, tentative but firm. "Excuse me, sir." Carter glanced sideways. A young woman no older than 24 stood with her phone raised, uncertainty in her eyes, but resolve in her voice. "I don't mean to intrude, but I just want to be clear. They're refusing to let you board." The quiet determination in her tone made the nearby crowd lean in further. Carter nodded once, his answer measured. "That's correct." The young woman blinked, as if stunned that he had confirmed it. After a short pause, she lifted her phone higher. "I'm live right now," she said. "People need to see this." And with that, the dam burst. Another passenger raised his phone, his voice sharp. "This is unacceptable. He's here escorting a fallen soldier." A woman farther down the line called out, waving her arm toward the counter. "Excuse me, what exactly are you doing? Can anyone explain why this officer is being refused?" The question cut through the silence, and people shifted uneasily, unsure if they should step forward. Yet the atmosphere in the terminal had transformed. What began as scattered whispers had grown into a current too strong for the staff to brush aside. The young clerk at the counter looked stricken, her hands hovering uselessly over the keyboard as cameras angled toward her from every direction. Then the Marine stepped forward again, his patience gone. "I've seen plenty in my years," he said, voice like gravel but steady. "But I never thought I'd stand in an airport and watch a soldier, one charged with escorting a brother home, be treated like this." The air itself seemed to still. Even the background announcements over the speakers felt distant, swallowed by the tension. The only sound that remained was the digital chorus of phones capturing it all. "This is shameful," the Marine declared, his stance unyielding. The agent's throat bobbed as she forced herself to type, fingers shaking, eyes darting. The supervisor was still absent, leaving a void filled only by the judgment of the crowd. A stroller squeaked as a baby whimpered, but even that sound was overtaken by the tapping of screens and the steady rise of voices. "It's already blowing up," a man muttered from the back. Carter remained motionless, his composure unbroken. He didn't need to move. The momentum was no longer in his hands. The world outside these walls was watching now. The young man in the hoodie smirked as he refreshed his phone. "It's everywhere," he whispered. The clerk behind the counter stiffened, realizing the same truth. This was beyond their control. A woman scrolled on her screen, her gasp audible. "It's on Facebook," she told her husband, disbelief etched across her face. The Marine veteran pulled out his own phone, shaking his head. "They have no idea what they've unleashed." As if the airport itself understood, the loudspeaker cracked to life. "Attention, passengers. Flight 247 to Phoenix is delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. We apologize." The announcement was met with scattered sighs, but most didn't care. Their focus was fixed on the man in uniform standing firm against a wall of bureaucracy. Then a shout rose near the windows. "It's trending on Twitter." A young woman held her phone high, and the crowd leaned closer. On her screen, a post in bold letters. "They just stopped a U.S. Army colonel from boarding while escorting a fallen soldier. Is this how America treats its heroes?" The hashtags blazed. "Let him fly." The numbers beneath the tweets spun upward, shares and comments multiplying in real time. Moments later, another notification flashed, this one from a veterans advocacy group. "We are aware of the appalling situation unfolding at Airport Name. Our service members deserve respect. Action is coming." The murmur deepened into something heavier. The realization spread. The airline had lost the story, and there was no getting it back. The clerk at the counter finally broke from her paralysis, drawing a shaky breath before rushing toward the back, vanishing through a frosted door. She wasn't going to fetch an explanation. She was running for cover. Carter adjusted the brim of his cap. He had stood in moments like this before, not inside airports, but in places where authority figures suddenly realized they had cornered the wrong man. His face remained solemn. This wasn't about victory or vindication. This was about Private First Class Jason Reynolds, the young soldier still waiting for his final journey home. And until that casket was airborne, Carter's mission was unfinished. Around him, the crowd wasn't just watching anymore. They were holding their breath. The air felt electric, expectant. Then at last, the supervisor reappeared, and this time he wasn't alone. Beside him strode another figure, sharply dressed in a dark tailored suit, airline badge gleaming at his chest. His steps were brisk, purposeful, the kind of man summoned when flames needed smothering. He stopped just short of the counter, scanning the scene. Carter in uniform, the veteran Marine with arms crossed, and the countless phones raised like judgment. He cleared his throat. "Colonel, please accept our apologies for the confusion. There was a technical error in our system, but we're moving quickly to secure your seat." Confusion. Carter had served long enough to decode that word. It wasn't confusion. It was exposure. It was damage control. He let the silence hang, watching the man fidget beneath the weight of it. "An error, is that right?" Carter said finally, his voice calm but sharp. "Yes, sir, a mistake. Unfortunate, unintentional. It will be corrected immediately." Scoffs rippled through the crowd. The Marine shook his head in disgust. The representative tugged at his tie, voice quickening. "We'll escort you personally to the gate, Colonel. First-class seating, of course," as though that mattered. Carter's gaze slid past him to the agent at the counter, who stood rigid, eyes fixed anywhere but on him. She was the same woman who had smiled through her denial, who hadn't even checked before shutting him out. He drew a slow breath. "I appreciate the effort," Carter said, "but let me ask you something." The rep nodded eagerly. "Of course." Carter's voice stayed even, but it carried like steel. "If no one had spoken up, if not a single phone had been recording, would I still be standing here?" The silence that followed was heavier than any answer. The man stammered, "Sir." Carter cut him off. "We both know." The truth lingered, undeniable. From somewhere in the crowd, a woman whispered, "He's right." The rep tried again, clinging to formality. "Colonel, we deeply apologize." "This isn't about apology," Carter said flatly. "This is about accountability." Murmurs swelled around them, no longer fueled by outrage alone, but by disappointment. The rep squared his shoulders, grasping at control he no longer held. "Colonel, allow us to take you to your gate immediately." But before Carter could answer, another figure stepped forward. A young man in a TSA uniform, jaw set, holding out his phone toward the airline rep. "Sir, you'll want to see this." The rep frowned, took the device, scrolled, then his face drained of color. The Marine crossed his arms, his tone edged with dark amusement. "Bad news." No answer came, but Carter already understood. The story had broken beyond these walls. On the glowing screen, the headline was unmistakable: U.S. Army Colonel denied boarding while escorting fallen soldier. Airline under fire. Beneath it, a video clip rolled, the very scene unfolding in the terminal, now streaming on a national news site for millions to see. The representative handed the phone back with a shaky breath, his voice thinner now as he faced Carter. "We sincerely regret this, Colonel. We'll be drafting a public statement clarifying everything." Carter's eyes narrowed. "No need. The public already has the truth." The words landed like stone. The rep pressed his lips shut, unable to argue. Carter let his gaze sweep across the crowd. The cameras still pointed toward him, then returned his focus. "I don't need upgrades. I don't need gestures. What I need is respect for me and for the soldier I'm bringing home." The murmur that rolled through the terminal carried agreement. The rep gave a stiff nod, knowing there was nothing left to salvage. From nearby, the Marine gave a low, approving grunt. Carter adjusted his hat once more. "Let's finish this mission." But the fallout for the airline was only beginning. The narrative had slipped beyond their grip. spreading faster than any press release could contain. The terminal had become something closer to a live broadcast, dozens of phones, hundreds of eyes, all recording. Then the crowd shifted as a new presence entered. A man in a dark navy suit strode forward with a posture that carried unmistakable authority. He wasn't airline staff nor airport security. He was military. Instinctively, people moved aside as he approached. His ID badge caught the light, and his voice was firm as he extended a hand. "Colonel Carter, Major Thomas Beckett, Department of the Army, we're fully aware of what's transpired." Carter returned the handshake, strong and steady. He didn't need to ask how Beckett had arrived so quickly. When the military is called, it moves. Beckett turned sharply to the airline representative, his tone clipped but unyielding. "This matter is no longer in your hands. Colonel Carter and the remains of Private First Class Jason Reynolds will not be boarding a commercial flight." The rep stammered, You were just about to clean up your mistake," Beckett cut in, polite but decisive. He glanced back at Carter. "The Pentagon has arranged a direct military transport. Your aircraft is already waiting." A ripple spread through the terminal, passengers exchanging astonished glances. The Army itself had intervened. Carter exhaled, not because he felt rescued, but because his duty was once again aligned with its purpose. "Understood, Major," he said. Beckett's eyes flicked once more to the airline staff. "This will be addressed." It wasn't a warning, it was a guarantee. Carter turned toward the Marine who had stood firm through it all, meeting his gaze with quiet gratitude. "Appreciate you, brother," he said. The Marine dipped his head, voice steady. "We take care of our own." Carter swept the terminal with one final look at the strangers who had raised their voices, who refused to let silence bury the truth. He straightened his uniform, squared his stance, and walked away. Not toward the gate, but toward a duty far larger than one flight. For the airline, however, the reckoning had only begun. They believed it might fade with a statement, a polished apology, a press release drafted in careful language. But the country wasn't letting it go. Within hours, major networks carried the footage. Veteran organizations issued sharp condemnations. Lawmakers demanded answers on camera. And the financial backlash hit swiftly, shares tumbling by week's end, while a boycott hashtag surged across platforms. Their feeds flooded with anger, with stories from service members and civilians alike demanding justice. Then came the decisive strike, a coalition of military advocacy groups filing a formal complaint, accusing the airline of discrimination and neglect of duty toward those who serve. Forced into a corner, the CEO stepped forward on national television, calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding and announcing that the employees involved had been placed on leave. But the damage was done, too late, too hollow. Meanwhile, Colonel David Carter carried on with what mattered. He delivered Private First Class Jason Reynolds home, standing tall beside the family as they received their son one final time. Carter had never wanted headlines. He didn't need cameras or applause. What he demanded, what every fallen soldier deserved, was respect, and respect should never hinge on viral outrage. It should never require millions of eyes to enforce it. It should be the standard. That day at the airport, the Marine, the passengers who spoke, the voices that refused to be quiet, had proven something vital. When people stand together, injustice cannot hide. If you believe in accountability, if you believe in honoring sacrifice, then speak. Because silence allows history to repeat, and next time, the world may not be watching.